Your brother is so hot. Too bad you look nothing like him, Marissa sighed, scrolling through her phone while I loaded the dishwasher at midnight. She didn't even look up from whatever Instagram story had captured her attention this time. I paused, a dirty plate suspended in my hands. After 15 years of marriage, you'd think her casual cruelty would stop surprising me. But there it was, that familiar knife twist, delivered with the same tone she'd used to comment on the weather. Your sister isn't bad either, I replied, keeping my voice level. Maybe we should all just swap partners at the next family barbecue. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. Are you sleeping with Lana? How dare you even joke about that? You're disgusting, Caleb. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here she was, accusing me of infidelity while her phone buzzed constantly with messages she'd angle away from my view. The same phone that lit up during dinner, during movies, during conversations, always demanding her immediate attention from someone whose contact name was just a single letter. B. Relax, Marissa. It was a joke. Unlike your comment about my looks, which apparently wasn't. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the kitchen tile. God, you're so sensitive. Can't you take a little teasing? Sam always laughs when I say stuff like that. Of course, she discussed my appearance with my younger brother. Sam, the golden boy who'd inherited Dad's jawline and Mom's charm, while I got their work ethic and practical sense, traits that apparently didn't photograph well for social media. I'm going to bed, she announced, already halfway to the stairs. Try not to sulk all night. I finished the dishes in silence, my mind cataloging the small betrayals that had accumulated over the past few months. The late nights at client dinners, the new clothes that seemed designed for someone else's appreciation, the way she'd started showering immediately after coming home, as if washing away evidence. My phone buzzed, a text from my security system. Motion detected at front door, 11:47 p.m. I pulled up the app, scrolling back through the evening's alerts. Marissa had arrived home at 11:23 p.m., not 10:30 like she'd claimed. Small lie, but lies had a way of multiplying. The next morning, I was loading my toolbox into the truck when Mrs. Graham appeared at her garden fence, coffee mug in hand. At 73, she maintained a surveillance network that would make the NSA jealous. Morning, Caleb. Saw Marissa getting home pretty late last night. Client dinner ran long, I replied automatically. Mm-hmm. She sipped her coffee thoughtfully. That Brentley fellow with the red Tesla was parked down the block around the same time. You know, the developer she's been staging houses for. Fancy car like that stands out in this neighborhood. My hand tightened on the truck door handle. Brentley? Brent Dale. Lives over in Harbor Heights with his wife and kids, though from what I hear at the grocery store, that marriage isn't exactly picture-perfect either. She gave me a meaningful look. Just thought you should know. We neighbors need to look out for each other. I thanked her and drove to work, but my mind kept circling back to that name, Brent Dale. The developer Marissa had been working with for the past 3 months, staging his high-end properties for sale. The same time frame when her behavior had shifted, when the late nights and defensive responses had started. At the office, I pulled up the county records on my computer. Brent Dale, 38, owned Dale Development, LLC. His company specialized in luxury waterfront properties, exactly the type of homes Marissa staged. His social media showed a man who clearly enjoyed flaunting his wealth. Expensive watches, exotic vacations, and yes, a red Tesla Model S. My phone rang. Caleb Turner, claims adjustment. Hey, it's Marissa. I need you to help me move some furniture tonight for the showcase tomorrow. The movers canceled last minute, and this is a huge opportunity. Which property? The Harbor Heights penthouse. You know, the one I've been working on for weeks. Brent's really counting on me to make this perfect. Brent. Not Mr. Dale, not the client. Brent. Sure, I said. What time? Meet me there at 7. And Caleb? Dress nice. There might be potential clients stopping by to preview. After she hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen. 15 years of marriage, and I'd become the hired help for my wife's affair. The realization settled in my chest like a stone. That evening, I arrived at the Harbor Heights penthouse to find Marissa's car already in the parking garage. The building was sleek glass and steel, the kind of place where a 2-bedroom cost more than most people made in 5 years. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, following the sound of voices to an open unit. Oh good, you're here, Marissa called out, not looking up from the staging she was adjusting. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, her hair and makeup done as if she were attending a gala rather than moving furniture. A man emerged from what looked like the master bedroom, and I knew immediately this was Brent Dale. Tall, artificially tanned, with the kind of confident smile that came from never being told no. His handshake was firm to the point of aggression. You must be the husband. Marissa's told me so much about you. All good things, I hope? Of course. His smile didn't reach his eyes. She says you're very dependable. Dependable. The word hung in the air like an insult wrapped in politeness. We spent the next hour moving furniture and artwork, with Marissa directing every placement. I watched her interact with Brent, the casual touches on his arm, the inside jokes, the way they moved around each other with practiced familiarity. They had the rhythm of people who'd spent significant time together. I think that's everything, Marissa finally announced. Caleb, you can head home. Brent and I need to go over the final details for tomorrow. I nodded and headed for the elevator, but stopped when I realized I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter. I turned back, fishing my keys from my pocket, when I heard Marissa's laugh. Not the polite chuckle she used with clients, but the genuine, delighted sound I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I pushed the door open quietly and saw them standing close together by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Brent's hand resting on the small of her back. They were looking at something on his phone, their heads nearly touching. The Ritz was perfect last week, Marissa was saying, but we should probably try somewhere new next time. Mix things up? My chest tightened. Last week she'd told me she was at a staging conference in Boston, a conference that, according to the photos they were scrolling through, had taken place in a hotel room. I backed away from the door and took the stairs down 15 flights, needing the physical exertion to process what I'd just witnessed. By the time I reached the parking garage, my course of action was crystal clear. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in 3 years. While Marissa prepared for her big showcase, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and began documenting everything I could remember from the past few months. Late nights that didn't match her stated schedule, unexplained charges on our joint credit card, the new lingerie that had appeared in her drawer, tags removed that she'd never worn for me, hotel loyalty points accumulating on her account despite her claims of staying with girlfriends during business trips. I accessed our shared cloud storage and began scrolling through photos. Most were the usual family shots and staging work, but buried in a folder labeled Client References, I found what I was looking for. Dozens of photos of Marissa and Brent at various restaurants, hotels, and events. Timestamps going back 3 months. In several, they were clearly more than business associates, holding hands across dinner tables, embracing on hotel balconies, sharing intimate moments they'd obviously thought were private. My hands shook as I forwarded the entire folder to my personal email account. 15 years of marriage, and she documented her own betrayal. The front door slammed, and Marissa's heels clicked across the hardwood. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, flushed with excitement. The showcase was incredible. We had 12 serious inquiries, and Brent thinks we'll have multiple offers by Monday. This could be the biggest sale of his career. That's wonderful, I said, closing my laptop. You two make quite a team. Something in my tone made her pause. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just observing that you work well together. She studied my face for a moment, then shook her head. You're being weird. I'm going to shower and then meet Ellie for drinks to celebrate. After she left, I spent the evening organizing my evidence, photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts I'd found in her purse, mileage logs from her car's GPS system. The pattern was undeniable and thorough. My phone rang. Sam's name appeared on the screen. Hey, big brother. How's married life treating you? About as well as expected. What's up? Just wanted to give you a heads up. Marissa called me earlier, asking for advice about communication issues in your marriage. Said you'd been distant and suspicious lately. I felt the ground shift beneath me. She discussed our marriage with you? She seemed really upset, Caleb. Said she was worried you might be having an affair because you've been so cold toward her. I told her that didn't sound like you, but what? She mentioned that you'd made some comment about Lana being attractive. Got her thinking maybe there was something there. The manipulation was breathtaking. She'd called my own brother to plant seeds of doubt about my fidelity while carrying on her affair with Brent. Worse, she'd turned my sarcastic response to her cruelty into evidence of my wrongdoing. Sam, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. How long has Marissa been calling you for advice? Silence stretched across the line. A few months, I guess. She said you two were going through a rough patch, and she needed someone who knew you well to help her understand what was wrong. And you didn't think to mention this to me? She asked me not to, said it would make things worse if you knew she was talking to your family about your problems. I closed my eyes. My wife had been using my brother as an emotional confidant while cheating on me, and Sam had been complicit in keeping her secrets. Caleb, you still there? Yeah, thanks for the heads up. Everything okay? You sound... Everything's fine, Sam. I'll talk to you later. I hung up and stared at the evidence spread across my table. Photos of my wife with another man, financial records showing money spent on hotels and restaurants I'd never been to, text messages I'd screenshotted from her phone while she showered, showing conversations with B that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. But the betrayal that cut deepest wasn't Marissa's affair. It was the systematic way she'd manipulated everyone around us to cover her tracks and redirect suspicion onto me. She'd turned my brother into an unwitting accomplice, poisoned our friends with carefully crafted stories about my supposed coldness and infidelity, and positioned herself as the victim of my neglect. The front door opened again. Marissa's laughter echoed through the house, followed by a man's voice. I heard her say, "He's probably asleep already. He goes to bed early like an old man." More laughter. Footsteps on the stairs. I gathered the photos and documents, slipped them into a manila folder, and walked to the living room. Marissa was pouring wine for herself and Brent, who'd made himself comfortable on my couch. "Oh," Marissa startled when she saw me. "I thought you were asleep. Brent just stopped by to drop off some contracts for Monday." "At 11 p.m. on a Saturday?" Brent stood, his confidence wavering slightly. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd save Marissa a trip to the office." I nodded slowly, then placed the folder on the coffee table between them. "Before you get too comfortable, there's something you both should see." Marissa's face went pale. "Caleb, what is that?" I opened the folder and spread the photos across the table like a deck of cards, hotel selfies, restaurant embraces, intimate moments they'd thought were private. The evidence of their affair laid out in full color. "These are from your cloud storage, Marissa. Amazing what people forget they're backing up automatically." She sank onto the couch, her wine glass slipping from nerveless fingers to shatter on the hardwood floor. Brent took a step backward, his face cycling through shock, anger, and calculation. "This isn't what it looks like," Marissa whispered. "Really, because it looks like my wife of 15 years has been having an affair with a married man for the past 3 months. It looks like she's been lying to me, manipulating my family, and spending our money on hotel rooms with her lover." Brent found his voice. "Now wait just a minute." "No, you wait." I stood, and something in my posture made him take another step back. "You're in my house, drinking my wine, sitting on my furniture after spending months screwing my wife. I think you've done enough waiting." "Caleb, please." Marissa stood too, reaching for my arm. "We can work through this. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I'll end it right now, I promise." I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd married, who'd promised to love and honor me, had become someone capable of elaborate deception and casual cruelty. "The only mistake was mine," I said quietly, "thinking I knew who you really were." I picked up the folder and headed for the stairs, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their exposure. Behind me, I heard Brent's urgent whisper. "How much do you think he knows?" "Everything," I thought. "I know everything now." Monday morning, I called my lawyer. By noon, I'd filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct. By evening, I'd changed the locks on the house, canceled our joint credit cards, and transferred half our savings to a separate account, exactly what I was legally entitled to do. Marissa's reaction was swift and vicious. She called my office, screaming about being locked out of my own home, until my supervisor had to hang up on her. She showed up at my workplace twice, causing enough of a scene that security had to escort her out. She called my parents, my siblings, and our mutual friends, spinning a story about my sudden mental breakdown and paranoid accusations. But I had the photos, and more importantly, I had the financial records. The joint credit card statements told a story that was impossible to deny. Charges at expensive restaurants on nights when she'd claimed to be working late, hotel stays in cities where she'd supposedly been visiting friends, purchases at lingerie stores and jewelry boutiques that had never benefited our marriage. Her sister Lana was the first to confront me directly. She cornered me at the grocery store on Wednesday evening, her face flushed with righteous anger. "How could you do this to her?" she hissed, blocking my path in the cereal aisle. "Marissa is devastated. She's staying in some awful hotel because you changed the locks like a vindictive child." "Did she show you the photos?" "What photos?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the same images I'd confronted Marissa with. Lana's expression shifted from anger to confusion to something approaching horror. When were these taken?" "Over the past 3 months, while she was telling me she was working late or visiting you." Lana stared at the phone screen, her anger deflating. "She told me you were having an affair, that you'd been cold and distant, staying out late, hiding your phone. She said she had proof." "What kind of proof?" "Text messages from some woman named Jennifer, photos of you at restaurants with her." I almost laughed. "Lana, Jennifer is my claim supervisor. She's 62 years old and has been married for 40 years. Any photos of us together would be from work functions. But Marissa said, Marissa has been lying to everyone. She's been having an affair with Brent Dale for months, and when she realized I was getting suspicious, she decided to flip the script and make me the villain. Lana looked sick. She specifically told me you'd made inappropriate comments about me. Said it proved you were looking outside your marriage. I made one sarcastic comment in response to her telling me how much more attractive my brother is than me. She turned that into evidence of infidelity. We stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by breakfast cereals and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. Finally, Lana spoke. What are you going to do? I'm going to divorce her, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows why. That evening, my phone rang. Sam's name on the display. Caleb, we need to talk. Marissa called me crying, said you'd lost your mind and were making up stories about her cheating. Did she show you the photos I sent? What photos? I'd sent them to Sam that afternoon. The same evidence I'd shown Lana. Check your email. I waited while he pulled up the images. The silence stretched long enough that I knew he was seeing what I'd seen, understanding what I'd understood. Jesus Christ, he finally whispered. How long has this been going on? 3 months that I can prove, probably longer. Caleb, I'm so sorry. She told me you were the one having an affair, said she was worried about your marriage and needed advice on how to win you back. She's been playing everyone, Sam, turning my family against me while she carried on with Brent Dale. You, Lana, probably our parents too. She's been manipulating all of you. I feel sick. She seems so genuine, so hurt. I actually told her she should fight for your marriage, that you were worth saving. The irony was perfect. My brother had been counseling my wife to save a marriage she was actively destroying. There's more, I said. I hired a private investigator yesterday. Turns out Brent Dale has done this before. 2 previous affairs with women who worked for his company. His wife filed for separation 6 months ago, then withdrew it. Marissa isn't his first victim, and she probably won't be his last. What can I do? Nothing. This is my mess to clean up. But Sam surprised me. Actually, there is something. Marissa asked me to meet her for coffee tomorrow. Said she needed help convincing you to go to couples counseling. What if I recorded the conversation? I considered it. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. She made me complicit in her lies. I need to make it right. The next evening, Sam sent me an audio file that removed any doubt about Marissa's true nature. In the recording, she didn't deny the affair. Instead, she strategized about how to minimize the damage. I need Caleb to look like the bad guy here. Her voice came through clearly. He's always been jealous of you and Brent, always insecure about not being as successful or attractive. If I can make this look like a midlife crisis, like he's projecting his own guilt onto me, then maybe I can salvage something from this mess. But the photos, Sam's voice, are taken out of context. Brent and I work closely together. We're friends. Caleb's twisted innocent business dinners into some sordid affair because he can't handle the fact that I have a successful career and he's stuck adjusting insurance claims. Marissa, I've seen the photos. You're kissing him. A pause. Then, so what? Maybe I did develop feelings for Brent. Maybe I made a mistake, but Caleb drove me to it with his coldness, his constant criticism, his obvious attraction to other women. A marriage is a partnership, Sam. When one person checks out emotionally, the other person has needs. That's not how marriage works. That's exactly how marriage works. Caleb wants to play the victim, fine. But I'm not going down without a fight. I've already talked to 3 of our mutual friends about his erratic behavior. I've documented his verbal abuse, his controlling tendencies, his threats to leave me homeless and penniless. Verbal abuse? Caleb's never raised his voice to you. Who's going to believe that? I'm a successful, attractive woman. He's an average-looking insurance adjuster with a temper. When I tell people he's been emotionally abusive, they'll believe me. I stopped the recording. I'd heard enough. The next morning, I forwarded the audio file to my lawyer along with a simple message. Use whatever you need. Friday night, I walked into the Knot, the dive bar where Marissa and I had had our first date 16 years ago. It was also where half the town came to drink and gossip, which made it perfect for my purposes. Jasper waved me over to his usual spot at the bar. My coworker had been my closest friend since we'd started at the insurance company together 8 years ago, and he'd watched my marriage deteriorate with growing concern. How you holding up? He asked as I ordered a beer. Better than expected. Amazing how much clarity you get when the lies stop. Marissa still telling people you're having a breakdown? Among other things. According to her sister, I'm now emotionally abusive, financially controlling, and probably having an affair with my boss. Jasper snorted. Jennifer, the woman who brings photos of her grandkids to every meeting? That's the one. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, watching the usual crowd filter in. The knot attracted a mix of blue-collar workers, local business owners, and neighborhood regulars who'd been coming here for decades. It was exactly the kind of place where reputations were made and destroyed over the course of a single evening. At 9:30, the door opened and Marissa walked in with her friend Ellie. They'd clearly been drinking elsewhere first, their laughter was too loud, their movements too deliberate. They claimed a table near the back, and I watched Marissa scan the room until her eyes found mine. She whispered something to Ellie, who looked over at me with obvious disgust. Then Marissa stood and walked to the bar, stopping just close enough to make sure our conversation would be overheard. "Caleb, we need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Please, I know you're angry, but we can work through this. What happened with Brent was a mistake, but it's over now. I choose you. I choose our marriage." The bar had gone quiet around us. I could feel the weight of a dozen conversations pausing, ears straining to catch the drama unfolding. "You choose me?" I turned to face her fully. "How generous. Tell me, when exactly did you make this choice? Before or after I found the photos?" Her face flushed. "Don't do this here." "Do what? Tell the truth? You've been spending the last week telling everyone in town that I'm crazy, abusive, and unfaithful. I think it's time people heard the other side of the story." I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my wife's business partner, Brent Dale." I held up the phone, showing a clear image of Marissa and Brent kissing in what was obviously a hotel room. The silence in the bar was absolute. "This was taken 3 weeks ago," I continued, swiping to the next photo. "This one's from last month, and this one..." I showed an image of them embracing on a hotel balcony, the city skyline visible behind them. This was taken the same night she told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Portland. Marissa lunged for the phone, but I pulled it away. "Don't make this worse than it already is." "You bastard," she hissed. "You vindictive, pathetic bastard." "I'm pathetic? I'm not the one who spent 3 months lying to my spouse while sleeping with a married man." The crude language was intentional, designed to cut through any sympathy she might have garnered. Around us, I could hear the whispers starting, people who'd known us for years processing this new information, reshaping their understanding of our marriage. Ellie appeared at Marissa's side, her face flushed with wine and indignation. "How dare you humiliate her like this? She made a mistake, but what you're doing is cruel." "What's cruel," I said, "is spending months telling our friends and family that I'm the one having an affair while she was the one cheating. What's cruel is manipulating my brother into giving her relationship advice while she was destroying our marriage. What's cruel is trying to make me look like an abusive husband because she got caught." "That's not what happened," Marissa said, but her voice lacked conviction. I played the audio recording Sam had made, letting her own words condemn her. The bar listened in fascination as Marissa's voice laid out her strategy for making me the villain. Her casual dismissal of our marriage vows, her calculated manipulation of our friends and family. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. "Anything else you'd like to add?" I asked. Marissa looked around the bar, seeing the judgment in every face. These were people who'd known us for years, who'd celebrated our anniversary parties and holiday gatherings. Now they were seeing her for what she really was. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know. But at least now everyone else knows who you really are." She turned and fled, Ellie trailing behind her. The bar erupted in conversation, but I finished my beer calmly, accepting the condolences and support of people who'd finally heard the truth. Jasper clapped me on the shoulder. "Feel better?" "Getting there." But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. 2 weeks later, I was putting the finishing touches on my masterpiece. The divorce proceedings were moving forward smoothly. Marissa's lawyer had advised her to accept my terms rather than face a contested hearing where all the evidence would become public record. She'd get half the value of the house and her personal belongings, but the financial infidelity had cost her any claim to alimony or my retirement accounts. But the legal victory wasn't enough. She'd tried to destroy my reputation, turn my family against me, and paint me as an abusive husband. She deserved consequences that went beyond a simple divorce settlement. The opportunity came when I learned about Brent's upcoming development showcase, a high-profile event where he'd be unveiling his latest luxury project to potential investors and the local media. Marissa was still staging the properties, apparently believing she could weather the scandal and continue her career. I spent a week preparing, phone calls to the right people, carefully planted information, strategic timing. By the night of the showcase, everything was in place. The event was held at Brent's flagship property, a converted warehouse on the waterfront that had been transformed into million-dollar condominiums. The guest list included city council members, local business leaders, and reporters from the regional newspapers. Exactly the audience I needed. I arrived fashionably late, dressed in my best suit and carrying a briefcase that contained the final pieces of my revenge. The party was in full swing, champagne flowing, catered appetizers, and Brent holding court with potential investors while Marissa played the role of successful staging consultant. I waited until Brent was addressing the crowd, explaining his vision for waterfront development and the importance of creating luxury living spaces that reflected the community's values. Then I stepped forward. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. "I have some additional information about Mr. Dale's commitment to community values." Brent's face went pale as he recognized me. Marissa, standing near the back of the crowd, looked like she wanted to disappear. "I don't think this is the appropriate venue," Brent started. "On the contrary, I think it's perfect. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dale has been having an affair with my wife for the past several months. And not just any affair, a documented photographed relationship that included using company funds to pay for hotel rooms and romantic dinners." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I have bank records, credit card statements, and photographic evidence of their relationship. More importantly, I have documentation showing that Mr. Dale has used his development company's expense accounts to fund this affair, which raises serious questions about his business practices and ethical standards. The crowd was riveted. Camera phones appeared, recording every word. A reporter I recognized from the local paper was frantically taking notes. "Furthermore," I continued, "this isn't Mr. Dale's first inappropriate relationship with a female contractor. I've spoken with 2 other women who worked for his company and experienced similar professional relationships. It appears to be a pattern of behavior that calls into question his fitness to receive city contracts and public funding." Brent tried to regain control. "These are baseless accusations from a bitter ex-husband." "Are they?" I pulled out a photograph, one of the clearer hotel room images, and held it up for the crowd to see. This was taken 4 weeks ago at the Harbor Heights Marriott. The room was paid for with a company credit card, ostensibly for a business meeting with staging contractors. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I could see city council members exchanging glances, investors looking uncomfortable, reporters sensing a story that was much more interesting than a real estate development. Marissa finally found her voice. "Stop this. You're humiliating yourself." "Am I? Because from where I stand, I'm simply providing transparency about the people asking for public trust and investment. Shouldn't potential investors know that their developer has a history of financial impropriety and workplace harassment?" The phrase workplace harassment sent another ripple through the crowd. In the current climate, those words carried serious weight. Brent made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Security, remove this man immediately." But the damage was done. The story was out, recorded on multiple phones, witnessed by the exact people who could destroy both their careers. I closed my briefcase and headed for the door, pausing only to address Marissa directly. "You wanted to play games with reputations and public perception. Congratulations, you won?" I walked out into the cool night air, leaving behind the wreckage of their carefully constructed facades. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting. Angry investors, concerned council members, reporters asking pointed questions that neither Brent nor Marissa could answer. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. "Holy shit, it's all over social media already. You magnificent bastard." 3 days later, the local newspaper ran a front-page story about financial impropriety in city-funded development projects. Brent's company was suspended from bidding on public contracts pending an investigation. 2 more women came forward with allegations of inappropriate workplace relationships. His wife filed for divorce, and his business partners began distancing themselves from the scandal. Marissa's staging business collapsed overnight. Word spread quickly through the luxury real estate market about her role in the affair and the financial misconduct. Clients canceled contracts, and her professional reputation was destroyed. She called me one last time, her voice raw with tears and rage. "Are you satisfied now? You've destroyed everything I worked for." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed everything you worked for. I just made sure everyone knew about it." "I'll never forgive you for this." "Good. That makes 2 of us." I hung up and blocked her number. The next week, she moved out of state, leaving behind the wreckage of her life in our small coastal city. Brent followed a month later, his business ruined and his marriage over. I kept the house, rebuilt my relationships with family and friends who'd been manipulated by her lies, and slowly constructed a new life from the ashes of the old one. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October, exactly 6 months after I'd found the first photograph. That evening, I sat on my back deck with a beer, watching the sunset over the water and reflecting on the journey from betrayal to justice. Marissa had tried to destroy me with lies and manipulation, but in the end, the truth had been a more powerful weapon than anything she could devise. Some people might call what I did cruel or vindictive, but I call it justice. She'd made her choices, and I'd simply ensured that those choices had consequences. In a world where betrayal often goes unpunished and liars frequently prosper, sometimes you have to create your own justice. I raised my beer to the setting sun, toasting the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new relationships built on honesty rather than deception. But tonight, I was content to sit in the ruins of my old life and appreciate the view.